Welcome to Cool Life Podcast, brought to you by therealthingdating.com. www.therealthingdating.com.
Polydor Records for out scouting. This girl grabbed my bangs and ran my head right into the speaker.
Oh.
And everyone cheered like this. Yeah.
When we shot the scene in Good Will Hunting, I didn't know who most of these people were at the time. I mean, they weren't stars. It was Gus Van Sant that directed it. Gus Van Sant was on the floor with Matt Damon's character. I didn't even know who Matt Damon was at that time.
I'm Eva John. I'm a former candidate for local government. I was a children's television entertainer, and I love this world. And I believe we should take care of each other and have a lot of fun along the way. Welcome to Cool Life. Here we go. And now, please enjoy the performance of Bruce Hunter in the hit TV series Rookie Blue, Season 4, Episode 6. Bruce Hunter is in the role of David Finn, Charlotte Sullivan as Gail Peck, and Peter Mooney as Nick Collins.
All right, so you said Grace left for a run sometime after midnight. You sure about the time?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I got home late. She was heading out as I was coming in. I didn't even get to talk to her.
Midnight's pretty late for a jog.
Look, if you're going to tell me that I should have stopped her, save your breath, because I already know.
This isn't your fault. We just need to talk through everything that happened, all right?
I've already gone over this with Officer Peck. Don't you guys talk to each other? Officer, tell him, all right? Please don't make me do this again.
I'm sorry, I'm not on the case anymore. I've been reassigned.
My daughter's case isn't important enough.
Look, last year an officer from this division went missing, and we brought her home, so...
So what? That's supposed to make me feel better? That's my daughter out there. I guess to you, it's no big deal. Just another face on your wall.
Sir, wait a minute.
And now, please join in on part 2 of my 2-part conversation with Bruce Hunter. Actor, comedian, writer, producer, director, painter, and kind and gentle human being. Gemini Award winner for Best Individual or Ensemble Performance for Atomic Betty. Nominated for a Canadian Comedy Award for writing. And nominated for another Gemini Award for Puppets Who Kill, Best Ensemble Performance. Cool Life Podcast. I'm Eva John. Today we are continuing our conversation with Mr. Bruce Hunter.
Hello.
Hello again.
I see her email and stuff. I don't
It doesn't show her
necessarily
email.
want
It shows
hate
Erica
mail
May.
to come to her. Okay.
Oh my God. What a world we live in. Because in a way it's funny, in a way it's not funny.
No, it's not these days. It is.
As long as we're willing and able to stand up for each other. It's not, okay, this is my group. You are my group. Women, people of color, you're a certain color, you're a certain religion, you believe in this or that, and we'll take care of each other. No, we have to all take care of each other because, once you let them come for one, they'll come for all. Right?
Yeah. You don't tell me how to live.
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want, right? That kind of thinking, I can pollute the planet. What do I care?
Yeah.
I'm only here for 80 years, maybe, I can just do
That's
whatever
what
the
they've
hell
been
I
doing
want.
up until now. That's
Yeah.
what they've been doing. I was in Air Cadets as a youngster, and we did, familiarization flights early on, and in the Ottawa Valley. And my first familiarization flight before I got into skydiving and crazy things, just get an idea of the air, just how beautiful everything looked from a small plane. And we flew over the E.B. Eddy paper factory, and I got to see this yellow brownish sludge going straight into the Ottawa River.
Into the water. Yeah.
And it's like, you look around, you think, well, why isn't someone stopping this? This can't be good. And we know it's happening. This isn't the first plane to fly over this.
No.
They're allowed to do that. And that was so many years
Yeah.
ago. It's like, well, multiply that by every other, paper mill and any other industry where they think, okay, well, we've got all this waste. Let's just flush it into the nearest stream, river, lake.
Yeah. And who are you to tell me not to do that?
Yeah.
Who's given you the position to have power over me? I mean, that's what they've been fighting for a long time is, don't tell me what I can do.
But when your freedom encroaches on the freedoms of others, then all of our freedom counts. And the planet, we don't really get to say we're going to mash the planet right into oblivion if,
Right.
my will be done. It should never, ever come to that. The fact that it's happened to this point is frightening. People are saying something
Oh, it's
about it.
probably happened many times over. I mean, the
Right.
human race has probably gone extinct many times, where there's a few scattered individuals left. I mean,
You're
they know
scaring
that
me.
there's been major events that have happened to the planet. It's shifted on its axis.
Mhm.
It's been hit by meteors, like major things that have affected the life on Earth. And they
That
believe it's
life on
happened
Earth,
seven
if
times, they
if it's
think.
come and gone 7 times, they managed to come and go without leaving Plastic Island, which used to be the size of the state of Texas and apparently is like half the size of America now.
Yeah, it's
I think.
floating around in the ocean.
And it's just plastic. And it's like, well, we've left that for someone to see. We've got to dismantle that, Bruce. If you could work on that plan.
I'll be doing what I can,
Yeah.
um, as we all should. What's his name? Had a really funny bit, George Carlin.
Right.
And he would basically, it's not really that funny. It's just basically he's saying the planet has been here for billions of years, and it'll just shake us off like fleas eventually, like it'll survive and turn into something else or rejig itself as it has in the past. It might dry up like Mars did, but it may not have anything to do with us little entities floating on top of it. We're
Well,
only this much of the surface of the planet,
right.
Um,
But we that much of the surface, but we've written our names into the Earth's face over and over again. And I mean, what an enormous amount of ego. If we feel we want to leave that kind of a mark, it's okay to leave that kind of a mark in trade for a big stack of paper that we use to live what we think is a comfortable life, because we're going to exclude that comfortable life from everyone until they have a big stack of paper like this, and they'll get that big
right.
stack of paper any way they can.
Well,
But
hubris is a big part of the human condition. I mean, it's one of the seven deadly sins, the idea that you think that you're bigger than creation or that you're more important than all the other creatures on the planet, and you act like that, and then eventually you're taught a lesson, like the fact that everything gets burned up and you included,
right.
So don't think that you're above and beyond this idea that, oh, God's going to take care of us or God's got a plan.
Well, he
Yeah.
had a plan. We didn't necessarily stick to it. I mean, everything
Yeah,
was working great. We've got everything we needed. I mean, like, I think we did great. Like, once we started off with things like water, the mango, right? Steak, potatoes,
right.
those were working out pretty good. It's just like when you want all these other things. I don't know. How do
Well,
we.
it's like we're no different than other creatures. I mean, you get a certain amount of bees in a certain area,
Right.
and they're all thriving and healthy, but then it gets to a point when there's too many bees. Well, mine, or they over, the resources don't sustain all those bees. So eventually they die, and then new bees come up. Eventually and nature, it works like that. And we're no different. I mean, we're part of that. We're not, better than that. We can do whatever we want to control it, but nature has the final word on all of
Nature's a
that.
fun word, but we can find a way to work in harmony with nature and to use our minds. I mean, we came up with things like the smartphone, right? Had to call it
And all the
smart,
garbage that goes around the smartphone.
right? And
Yeah.
of course, things like, and smart cars and e-cars. That's what is that metal that they need in the batteries that they've got little kids in minds and
Yeah,
developing.
lithium batteries. I mean,
Yeah.
there's only so much resources that you can use.
Right.
The sun, that's a pretty good resource to be able to figure out how to create stuff from sun energy, because nothing is, there's very few things that are sustainable. You will run out of those resources after a while.
Other than if they're not managed. And I think that's the thing, being good caretakers, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much more to us, which is why we're creative beings, right? There's so much more to our lives than just simple survival. And there's some people, that simple survival is all they'll want. But then there's the oddballs here and there that bring in the spice of life. Because, while everyone else is digging ditches and making sure that our huts are built, and then someone will break into song.
Right.
Be like, or they'll tell that joke. So we're taking a break. We'll be back after 1 minute, and we're going to hear from our sponsor, and we'll come back to Mr. Bruce Hunter on Cool Life Podcast. Those lonely days of lockdowns and isolation are gone for good. Go to www.therealthingdating.com. That's www.therealthingdating.com. It's time to share. Share your time, share your life, share your love. www.therealthingdating.com. Join for free. Upgrade at any time, starting at just $5.99 a month. www.therealthingdating.com. Because it's time. You're listening to the Cool Life Podcast. We'll be back in 3, 2, 1. Please enjoy Bruce Hunter's performance in the motion picture Mean Girls, starring Lindsay Lohan, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, Tim Meadows, and Rachel McAdams. In this scene, Bruce Hunter plays the role of the mathlete moderator.
She's supposed to be grounded, but he let her out.
After 87 minutes of very competitive play, we have a tie. In the event of a tie, we move into a sudden death round. Each team is given the opportunity to choose their opponent. North Shore, who do you select?
The girl, dude. The girl.
Contestant Kraft.
For Marymount, Ms. Carolyn Kraft.
We picked the girl, too.
And from North Shore, Ms. Caddy Heron.
It's Katie. Oh my God, that's me.
Contestants, find the limit of this equation.
The limit is -1.
Oh crap, I lost.
That answer is incorrect. Now, we are in a sudden death. If Miss Heron can answer this problem correctly, we have a winner.
Limits. Why couldn't I remember anything about limits? The limit does not exist. The limit does not exist!
Our new state champions, the North Shore Mathletes.
Well, when you have those doors open, those opportunities that turn up for you, and whether that's as a performer or a writer, I mean, there's a process you go through, whether that's in preparing or writing for directing. Can you tell me a little bit about what is your process when you're writing new material?
Well, there's a bunch of different ways that I approach it. I teach people how to write, but there's different ways of doing it. In improvisation, sometimes it's just starting off with a line,
Right.
And where does that line take you? How do you make sense of the next line from that previous line, you know? And the next thing you know, you're moving forward from that particular point. That's one way of doing it. The other way is all of a sudden you think of an interesting title. You know, that's how I used to do my my improvaganza show, or the workshop is what it was called, where I would get a line from the audience, or basically a title, like you would do at Second City. You'd get a title, and then I'd tell a story using the improvisers, and they would feed me ideas, and but the initial title would give me an idea as to where this story is going to go. Like, so for example, if somebody said the man with the farty hat, or whatever it is that they're giving me,
Your words.
As soon as as soon as they give you something, then I have to figure out, how do I tell that story of that, you know?
Yeah.
Because as soon as you make a suggestion, as soon as you say a line, it's narrowed down by multiples, like millions, down to that point, right? So it just gets closer and closer to that particular point. When I wrote Dine Her, which was a play about zombies, I was in the George Street Diner, and Ash, who owns the place, I was telling her I was working on a script with my partner, with Erica May. And I said, listen, we were supposed to do a play. And I said to her, let's not do a play where I have to pay somebody else for the rights. I'll write a play, right? So I was sitting in the diner, and she said, and Ash said, who owns the place, says, well, why don't you write a play here? Mm. And I looked around the diner, and all I could see was, the image I got to my head was zombies hitting the window. Like zombies, bang, right, hitting the window, right? All the, you know, along this big glass window. And I thought, that made me laugh. And I thought, well, why does that happen? Why did that get to that point? And in fact, so I wrote a play that all kind of goes around that moment, you know? So when that moment happens in the play, the audience is just, they're incredibly satisfied, because now they're surrounded by zombies, and the zombies are trying to get into the diner, right? But it was, that moment said something to me, like it was as if somebody had offered me the gift, and now I had to figure out, how does this work? How do I write around this image? Right. And so I wrote the whole play around that particular, and that happened sort of halfway through in the middle. Okay. So it was like from the middle out is how I wrote it, right?
And it reverse engineered the story.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how you can do it with pretty much anything. And in that particular case, I wrote it. So there's different ways of developing script. Also, sometimes just writing dialogue. The first line of what this person says, and then the next person says something else. And you see where all of a sudden the characters all of a sudden start coming out of the woodwork, as if it's like you're doing a soap carving or something. It's telling you what it is. You know, you're carving, right, and ripping the thing away until you've got this thing there, you know. So that's kind of what it is with writing, is sort of trusting the process. Because normally a lot of people sort of sit back and they go, well, what am I going to write about? And what is it going to be about? And all of that stuff that kind of stops them from taking that first step. So sometimes, because you can just throw it away. People. I mean, pardon me?
I think that's true for most people. You're right. When they start to write, they start with a question to themselves of, what does that work look like? What's going to go on that piece of paper?
Yeah. They ask the question before they've made any choices.
Right.
Make a choice first, and then ask the question. Mm-hmm. You know, because then you're working from something rather than an empty plate. You know, if you throw something down, then you see what it is, then you figure it out. You might not even use that original idea. That original idea might take you to the next place. of which explores, and then you create a whole new thing, and that thing is just shavings, but it was those shavings that got you into it.
Cleared
Does that
everything
make
out of the
sense?
way. Oh yeah, it sure
Yeah,
does.
it's not being afraid of any of the development or the thing, whatever it is. Don't be afraid of how much work it takes. Like, don't think, oh, that would be really hard. I can't do that. Or I've never written about unicorns. I don't know anything about a unicorn, but it's not going to stop me from writing the first line and see how that makes sense. How do I make sense out of that first idea? And the rest takes care of itself. You just follow the trajectory, and you'll find that you will create a story if you're true to it.
That's kind of the cure to writer's block, isn't it? Whereas that staring at that blank page that can freeze a lot of writers.
I have a game that I would teach people normally when I was teaching them improvisation, and I, trying to get people to just respond quickly is a big part of improvisation. So you do games like one word at a time, where I say a word and then the other person says a word, and we tell a story one word at a time, or we have a conversation back and forth where I just say a sentence, they say a sentence back and forth. It's a very practical, very, very important game when you want to learn how to improvise. So I would teach people how they could play this one word at a time game by themselves. And what you do is you take a piece of paper and you put a line from the top to the bottom and across the middle. Now you've got 4 columns on your page. Then you start at the top of the left column, you write a word. Then you go to the right column, you write a word. Then the third one, you write a word. Then the fourth one, you write a word. Then you go back up to the first column, then you write the next word. And the game starts going much faster because you're going do 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 do. Then the first word that comes to your mind, you write it down. Then to the next column of words. So you're writing 4 stories at the same time.
Whoa,
and so it stops you from thinking, right? Because you don't have time to think. All you have time is to read these words and then write the next word, and then read these words and write the next word. And then it just starts the roller coaster until you're not thinking anymore. You're just the facilitator,
right,
for the next word.
Yeah.
Because the story almost starts telling itself, and you're just the guy that has to make sense out of that sentence.
I think I just figured out my homework. Okay,
try it. It's a great exercise.
This is your homework.
And it's a great exercise
for sure. I want people to comment back with your homework on creating the 4 segments of a piece of paper and just fire off word
one word at a time. Just you and if you get stuck, it's like that too. If you're trying to write something you don't have a clue, don't worry about it. Just take a pen, start writing, because you can just throw that away, and keep writing, find something else. You will find that you'll be able to, like when I write stand-up, I'd start writing stand-up, and a lot of stuff you just end up throwing away, but you're mining for jokes.
Right.
You're mining so that you find the best part, and you found, oh, look, I found a joke in here. Here's a great setup. I can use this section, put that in the pile, throw away the garbage, go back.
I get it.
Start, trust in the process, and don't judge it. Never judge yourself. Don't judge what you're doing. Don't judge other people.
Right.
Never judge other people, and don't judge yourself. Don't think, oh, I can't do this. All that is bullshit. It's all lazy stuff that gets in the way to stop you from picking up a pen. And I would suggest a pen because you're connected to the word as you're writing it.
Interesting.
Not necessarily like this. I mean, if
so you mean if you're typing on the laptop,
go to the next column and type it. It's more process,
right,
rather than a piece of paper that you can do it quickly.
Right. So rather than have that electronic equipment as your instrument of writing, you're recommending just do it pen to paper.
Pen to paper, because there's too many steps stopping you from because then you change the word. You know, it's not immediate. It's got to be boom, 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 this word, doom, 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 this word, you know, not reading it, then going, okay, I got to get up to this column. I got to type it in. I mean, if you can work that quickly, great.
Tab, enter.
Tab, yeah, to go up to that column rather than, you know, and once you start doing it, you don't even need the paper anymore. You can go to your thing and look at the thing you've written and get inspired from where you started, you know. So there's lots of exercises like that.
Interesting. We all just got a writing lesson from Bruce Hunter.
You see, the biggest thing is that people are afraid. Because then they think, well, what am I going to get out of this? Or they think too much in the future, or am I going to be a writer? Or, you know what I mean? They put too much stuff on it rather than letting it just be an experience for them. Just let it be a thing that you're doing. You're writing. You don't think you're writing this because you have to write a novel and I have to be brilliant. None of that. Right. Just write and see where it takes you. Experience it and enjoy it. You know, like, don't be a musician because you want to make a lot of money and you want to sell an album. Be a musician because you enjoy playing the notes. You feel the music. The rest will take care of itself, whether you're meant to be a star or not. And that's not the point. The point is you and the paper, you and the idea, you and the connection to your thoughts. That's what's important, not what am I going to get out of this?
I get that. I mean, that's the better philosophy. If only the industry was as pure. Right? And
well, the industry is a result of people being creative. The industry doesn't exist until people have done something and they need an industry to support that. So the industry doesn't have anything to do with the creative element. Nothing, in fact.
That's
you know, it sometimes either gets in the way, but it's never there necessarily. It sometimes helps you set up to get to that point. But it all comes down to what the creative person does in the moment when they think of the idea, or they were able to pose it in such a way that it appears in paper in a way that you can read it and understand it.
As far as when you've seen this with your students and you've seen the outcome, do you see that any kind of a turning point when they've connected to that exercise, from understanding that from that there's 4 quarters on your page, that they can turn that into something creative?
Well, I mean, yes. I think I see it when, I mean, not necessarily in that exercise, because that takes some time to get really good at doing that,
right?
You know,
of course.
And also, when I show it to people, I've only got so much time to show them that exercise and show them how it works. The rest is you doing it at home, trying to do it. But they do experience that when they're working together, especially the one word at a time thing, and they're saying words back and forth, and they realize they're creating this comedy and this very funny thing, and the audience is watching them and they're laughing, and they just realize that they're just doing it one word at a time, and and they're keeping it going, and they're keeping it going, and because when you do it one word at a time, you have to come up with something quick. All of a sudden your reaction is quick. Where does this come from? This line, this word? It's your brain. Your brain is moving really fast. It's giving you a word, and all of a sudden it's the perfect word. And the audience is following, and all of a sudden they realize, oh my gosh, I've got this power. I've got this power to create. I've got this power to listen and build from what I hear or what I see. Because most people think they start fresh and there's nothing there. But of course there's stuff there. There's your life. The 20 minutes before you got into an argument with a guy at the coffee shop. That all feeds into the words you're going to use, or what the thing you're going to write about. Be aware of it. Let it fuel you, you know?
With that type of ability and seeing it come to life with actual individuals opening up a new skill for themselves. I mean, something I hope that you're finding to be very satisfying. It sounds like a crazy exercise, and then seeing it turn into something must be amazing.
Well, I mean, that's just one exercise. There's
Right,
thousands
of
of
course,
exercises
yeah.
that we do in the classes, and you never know
Mhm.
when the moment's going to hit, where all of a sudden somebody, it's almost like you're watching them jump off a cliff, and then they fall a little bit, and then they start to flap, and they start to fly, and they start going,
Nice
oh
comparison.
gosh, I can actually do this, and it may even be for a brief few moments before they fall again.
Right.
But
They're
it's
gonna
enough
try
that
it
they
again.
know that it can work. And then they start putting more effort into it. And then they start realizing it's not as hard as they thought. All they got to do is listen. Improvisation is about listening. It's listening to this environment around you. It's listening to the other person. It's making choices about what they've just said. Just like when you're writing the lines, one word at a time, you're making a choice and you're putting it down. If I was to inspire anybody to write, just do it. Just write a first word, see where it takes you. Don't think about it beforehand and work it all out. Just write it, see where it goes. Take it, make it happen. Open your mouth, improvise, just start going. Go. Okay, you're a man there with no pants. Go. Explain that. How's that going to work? You're
I
a man
should
with
be
no
so
pants.
lucky.
Right. A
We're
man
gonna
with no
take-
pants. Go.
And we're with Bruce Hunter visiting Cool Life Podcast. We're taking a little break, and we'll be right back after we talk about our sponsors and supporters.
Excellent.
Those lonely days of lockdowns and isolation are gone for good. Go to www.therealthingdating.com. That's www.therealthingdating.com. It's time to share. Share your time, share your life, share your love. www.therealthingdating.com. Join for free. Upgrade at any time, starting at just $5.99 a month. www.therealthingdating.com. Because it's time. This is Cool Life Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to Cool Life on your streaming service and on YouTube as Hellenique Today. That's HELENIQUE Today. Because that helps us to bring more cool stuff to your ears. You're listening to the Cool Life Podcast. We'll be right back.
And we are back with Bruce Hunter, and this is our amazing time that we're getting together. Talk about your experience in the entertainment industry as a writer, producer, performer, comedian, director. And I know that you work in a wider field of entertainment. I know you've even directed rock videos, music videos. You've worked with every level of entertainment. When you talk about music, you're not saying that in theory. You've worked with professional musicians who are making their daily bread doing this. And I mean, it's pretty awesome for them to also recognize, well, like, what was that like working on an actual rock video and having that, being able to formulate the outcome of that in your own hands?
Well, I mean, in that particular case, my friend, they had hired he had a bunch of songs, but there was one they were shooting, and they'd hired a director to help them put together this video, but he bailed on them, and they were kind of a bit messed up. So he called me up and said, "Can you help us out? We're kind of desperate." And so I looked at their proposal for what they were going to do, and it was a bit complicated. So I cleaned it up and then went in and said, okay, let's do it like this. And so I helped them rewrite the structure to it. and then grabbed a camera and had a cameraman help me, and we shot it, and then I edited it together. And that was kind of a bit of a quick fix. We didn't have a lot, which is good in some cases. Sometimes when you have too much time on your hands,
overthink.
Overthink. Yeah, overthink can be deadly.
Okay.
But because we were under the gun to do it, I think it helped us make some quick decisions about how the thing was going to look. And as it turned out, it ended up being really good, and we had a lot of hits watching it. But I love, I've worked with, different musicians over the years in different forms. Illustrated Men have done shows where we had musicians playing either in the background or in short films, and we're supplying the comedy and the writing of that kind of stuff. But we've been pretty lucky with some of the people we've had work with us. Blair Thompson was one of our close friends and musicians. He was our piano player. We called him Monkey Boy because he was basically the fourth member of our group, in a way, our fourth Beatle, if you wish. But and he now writes operas in Montreal. He's quite successful writing these operas. Yeah. And he is very good at what he does. So we've been really lucky working, I've done plays and with Sean Fisher is another really amazing musician that wrote a play called Freudian Slip of the Jung, which is like a musical about Freud and Jung meeting, which was a great thing to do, but the music was fantastic. So there's some really good musicians that I admire greatly, because I can't possibly play like them, but I certainly appreciate their skills,
That's an amazing foray into working with musicians.
I'd love to direct more music videos. I really like doing it because it's not a movie where you take weeks and weeks trying to put this thing together. It's pretty much, a 4 minute. Yeah, it's a 4-minute presentation, or, at the most. And you've got to cram all of those images into that, little package and make it interesting, which I like the challenge of that stuff,
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, family, if you've got a band and you need to get your rock video directed together right,
or any kind of music video,
his name is Mr. Bruce Hunter.
That's right. I'll do it for sure. And my prices are good,
Well, that's good to know, because quite often, that's the thing about the industry. I mean, for an actor, you do your time on your set and you sign off on the union slip, and then you get your check and you get your residuals and and whatever other deal you've cut on that project. And with musicians, it can be a different thing where they make their dreams come true, sign a deal with a label, and then find out every single thing they do comes out of what they would earn. You make a video, that budget is actually paid for by the musicians.
Yeah,
chips away at every dime that they haven't earned yet.
Like as if that hasn't been worked out. That system is screwing people for their money. It's like writers, when they're like, you hear these people going, "Oh yeah, you want to write a book? We'll produce your book for you. Just pay us all this money, and we'll publish your book." Oh, okay, that's not exactly how I thought this was supposed to work. So there is a lot of, for people out there, I'm sure a lot of people know this, but there is a lot of shysters.
Shysters or bad deals that don't work out so well. I mean, on a larger scale, it still happens with the biggest musicians, where the structure of the contract will still say only their earning power is so much bigger and so much faster, right? They have a huge ready international market by the time they've hit a certain level in their careers. So that when they say, yeah, you're paying for this music video, it is coming out of your cut, but then they don't feel it the way another band would feel it in their first year of that contract, right?
Well, how many times have you heard like bands like Blondie talk about their going, we were out doing shows and, you know, we weren't getting any money. Like, where was the money going? I mean, I just watched a thing with Snoop Dogg was talking on the awards, and he was talking about, I don't understand how this streaming goes. You know, you have millions of downloads and no money. Where does my money come from? Like,
they're making 10 to 12%, unless they make a better deal because of their name, from the streaming service. And a streaming service will be happier to have a Snoop Dogg on their service, and they're happier to give him a deal they won't give to other people. So he would get more than the 10 to 12 percent. But, you know, if he doesn't understand it, maybe he needs me as a manager. I don't know. But I'll explain it to him. I'll get him his money. Don't worry. Don't worry, Snoop, I got you.
Yeah. It's like, where's my money going? Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it was pretty interesting. And people are like, it was at the awards thing, and people are going, oh, is he supposed to be talking about this? But well, power to you, my friend.
Right.
You know, because nobody knows that, you know,
people know that, but if they're not having that conversation when at the time that he needs to know that, or maybe they don't want to let him know that they have made a deal where he is getting getting a 35 or 40% on that stream, and that maybe they're just giving him 10 or 12% and scooping back the rest. Things like that have happened from the dawn of the music industry. But it's just, do you know what your deal is? And then are you watching the money come in, or do you have another manager watching that money come in? And like I said, I'm here, Snoop. I'm here. I'll take care of that money part. I will explain it. I will compartmentalize that money. You'll be good.
Well, that's good.
It's pretty simple, and it's pretty good. It's not a bad thing. Streaming has changed from what people knew once before, but it's one of those things where, as an actor, performer, comedian, you do your work, you get your money, and it's pretty straightforward. With musicians, it can be a long and winding road to see when does that money come down. But when it comes down big. Musicians make easily 100 times more. Like, a successful musician will easily make 100 times more than what an actor will make, right? And so, right? So you talk to a musician who's got like $100 million in earnings, and an actor who's got $1 million in earnings, feel proud of that $1 million. But, you know, you guys worked just as hard and just as long. It's just the music industry can pay out differently and pay out better. I think that in the end, if you're content with what you make and what you're creating as a performer, then maybe, you know, you don't mind that you're making that 1 million versus 100 million, or you diversify, which is why you've got so many of these. You know, once upon a time, we'd say triple threat. No one seems to care about dance the way they used to, but where you'll get actors who are musicians who are actors. But, you know, someone like John Bon Jovi, it's hardly worth his time to be in a film production other than for stretching himself as a performer, because, you know, in the blink of an eye, worldwide, globally, he's making so much money per minute.
Right.
But
I think also it's a little bit different with the way that thing has been set up for actors as opposed to musicians, because in the acting world, the infrastructure has been there for a while, where, you know, they break down the percentages of the money that's being spent. You know, I'm sure some people get more money than they actually deserve, the way they break it down. But on the same hand, it's set up the way where, you know, a percentage I eventually get a percentage for the movies that I've been in, and I've been in a lot of them. So if you've made
that deal, if you're getting points,
but because that's already been structured by the industry. Like,
it's structured by the industry, but if they bump yours up because of the strength of your name, where you're getting where you're getting points in that film. Yeah.
Well, your agent gets you those deals, make sure that you are getting that. But they're also, your agent is there making sure that the company that's hiring you to do it is signed on to those particular things, so that they make sure that you're going to get that percentage before you even go in to do the shooting.
Right.
I think with a musician, you make an album, maybe you've had to make some deals to get that album made. You make the album and then you realize, oh, all of these deals that we were making, there's all these pieces that are coming out, and maybe I get a smaller percentage than I thought. But there has to be people that are there putting those contracts together, make sure that people follow those contracts. When you're an actor, those infrastructures are already there. There's a whole business that basically runs on getting money from that, so they can get paid. So that infrastructure has been there for a long time. I think with musicians, it's much more of an individual thing. You've got to get somebody that's going to follow that money and make sure you get that money, not like the system that's already in place for actors, that have been doing it for a while, unless you're like a superstar that has his own contract, of course, that it has to be. But most of the other people that are in it are being paid because the system is already there,
right? But and it'll give them a certain minimum, but and there's nothing wrong with that certain minimum. But I guess that's part of what everyone's walked out on striking at the moment, over making certain that they are protected as
well. I think AI is the big
it's a huge thing to protect them as performers and not to be replaced by electronics.
Right? Well, also, I mean, they want to have it so that if I shoot a film, then all my images within that film can be used to create another film, for example. And they've already paid me, so they don't have to pay me for my image anymore. That's kind of their argument. Like once they've captured you into that world, then they can use you as much as they want. I remember when they first started doing AI sort of stuff, when they were doing like Charlie Chaplin was doing a Coca-Cola commercial, and everybody was up in arms because they were like, what? I mean, here's this iconic character that everybody knew, and here was Coca-Cola using his image, right? I don't know if his family got the money for doing it or whatever, but people were pretty upset about it. So I think that was the reaction then. Now it's different. They'll use Charlie Chaplin's image, or they'll use him to do anything. They can make Barack Obama say anything they want on AI. So how do you know that all these actors are watching on a film if they haven't all been CGI'd?
Right.
I mean, you think of movies like Ben-Hur, they would never have that many actors running around on a Ben-Hur set. They'll just CGI them all.
Now they can,
and each one of those people was probably real at some point, running along the sand from a distance, but they don't get paid because they've captured their image and they can use it again and again and again. So that's the problem, is that they get you to film you, and then they can make your image do whatever they want. And that's what actors don't want. They don't want their jobs to be taken away because this AI has recreated you, but better, more clear.
Right. Better, more clear,
and speaking different languages.
And not complaining and demanding more money or a break.
Exactly, or a break.
Better snacks.
Or a sandwich. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Nicer dressing room and no green M&Ms.
Yeah, so I can understand their, I mean, how good are they going to get at doing that stuff? Are they going to be able to really impose an emotional state for that character in an AI character? Are they going to be able to bring that? Are they able? Because there always seems like we were talking about hubris. There is a certain amount of hubris that's involved where somebody thinks, oh, I can do this without actors and I can create this. And when you watch it, you're like, yeah, but it just misses. There's something not there.
Yeah.
You haven't captured the soul of this character.
Well,
Yeah.
I hope it will remain that way, that technology doesn't get to the point where it's completely indistinguishable, and that nobody would want to take advantage of it if it does become indistinguishable between the AI version and the real human performance. But I mean, I think it's also something from the dawn of time. There's always somebody who gets it in their mind that, you know, there is a way to devalue the participation of the human being, right, in one
Well,
way or another.
I saw, these robots playing ping pong
Right.
against these ping pong guys,
Right.
experts. There's two of them playing against him. And this thing is walking around playing, boom, boom. And at one point, he just sort of walks away, hits the ball, and scores.
Right.
Like almost knows that this shot is going to end the game.
Right.
I mean, that's
Right.
how good these things are. I mean, how can you compete with something like that?
Well, I think the whole idea is that not to have humans compete with robots. Robots are fascinating, that you can take something that has no life in it and program it. I mean, if you understand what goes beyond, just building a robot, but it's the programming. And that programming is a human interaction. They're not self-programming yet. They're not fully self-programming yet.
Yeah.
I should say.
But it's moved a lot faster than you ever thought it was going to be. We were talking about this, 4 years ago, and then now you see these robots doing these incredible things, these robots that they're going to eventually, if they haven't already, are going to put guns on them,
Yeah, all the movies that try to warn us about this from back in the day. Thank you, Jean-Claude Van Damme. But, it was kind of coming as long as we don't try to continue to teach our children and our families the philosophy of peace, right? We send our kids to school. They spend more time in school than they do with their families. Isn't that a great opportunity in school to say, hey, here's a philosophy of peace? But we don't do that.
Yeah. Let's hope that humanity evolves as far or faster than the technology. Is that the understanding of it? It's like the Oppenheimer movie,
I think I can't watch it. You enjoy it. I know
I haven't
it's a
seen
heartbreaking
it, but
it's
the
a
idea
story
that some guy has been given the opportunity to be able to end the world,
right,
or end, lots of people in a split second, and what does that do to that person? When you know that, are you making the right choice to be able to keep going and develop this thing that could destroy humanity? I mean, look at the collider that they created, the collider that collides atoms together just to see what's going to happen.
Right.
And people are like, well, you might open up a wormhole and we'll all get sucked into it or whatever.
Right.
So have you thought of that? Right.
But, wanting to know what can be done is scientifically is not the same as saying that it has to now be used in a way that ends life. And that's what I think is really sad. With Oppenheimer, it's not like, ooh, what happens? This is a piece of history. This is what did happen.
We know what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's a tragic piece of history that led to the ability to annihilate beautiful individual human beings in the blink of an eye. I think it's a sad moment.
And the environment for thousands of years.
And the environment for thousands of years. But, putting human life and the sad idea that you have to put people through that horrible pain and death that they can no longer contribute to the world, and all that would have come from them can no longer contribute to the world, and say, well, is that power? Because you can use this piece of science in that way. I think it's heartbreaking, and they told that story quite a few times throughout my life. And now that here's another round. Is it to educate us, to make us better at avoiding such a tragedy? I don't know. But personally, I don't think I can handle watching the story again, just because I think it's sad. And I think personally, I just would like to maybe watch something that'll make me laugh.
Yes, that's right. Something that's going to make you.
Bruce Hunter.
That's right.
What do I have in the catalog? So tell me, Mr. Bruce Hunter, I mean, you're sitting here and sharing these amazing moments of your work, and behind you is just gorgeous decorations of not just decorations, commemorants and tributes to your work. Do you mind walking us through some of the images that we can see?
Yeah, let's see. Can you see this one? Yeah, this is Diner. This was the first production that we did of Diner. That was
Right.
at the George Street Diner. That's my partner, Erica. And there I am as a zombie who becomes a
course.
zombie at some
Right.
point. So I'm racing against time to get her to marry me before I become a full-out zombie. So it was a romantic story.
Of course, the core of love.
We did that in Niagara Falls too. We had a different cast in Niagara Falls that did it, and we also did it in Kitchener-Waterloo, which was great. We wanted to open it in a bunch of major cities all on the same night, so that there'd be like a zombie invasion all over the country at the same time. This is, do you see this here? This is
Yes.
The Puck Stops Here. That was a show I directed at Second City. It's a hockey show. So we had a lot of hockey stars that came to the show.
Oh, wow.
And people have signed that, all the people that were there. These are all hockey people. Stormin Norman and Kit Hood, who was a referee, and we had Daryl Sittler come to the show. And
oh my goodness.
And yeah, so I've done some hockey stuff, and I'm not a big hockey player or anything. My brother is, but so that was fun. I enjoyed that. And this is the Danish play. Do you see that? The Danish
Yes,
play?
see it.
That we took to Denmark. That was Sonia Mills that wrote that, about her great aunt who was in the Danish resistance. It was a real story about her aunt who was in the resistance. Basically a very strong, independent woman that ended up having a baby, and the authorities wanted her to tell them who the father was. And she said, no, I didn't fight in this war to be able to be told who I could have a baby with or anything else, right? So far ahead of her time. But that was a great play. We ended up going to Denmark. They took us to Denmark, and that was fantastic.
Amazing.
Going to Denmark. This picture, let's see if you see, that's Illustrated Men. That's one of our posters from our Christmas special. Those are my partners in it. White Mice I did with Darren O'Donnell. It's about it's about the white race. Basically, we were mice in it, and we both had long tails and pink fingernails and pink eyes because we were mice in that show.
Right.
It was all about racism in Canada, which was fun to do. And we did an audio version of it on CBC. Where we talk like this. It was like this all the time. We were like mice. Hey. And what else?
There. Okay. Tell me about this one.
Which one?
Yeah, this big
the Beatles one?
The big blue one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that's my brother got that for me, and I've had it for so long, and then only since I've moved have I been able to take it out because it's so big.
Wow.
Right. So my brother was happy when I finally told him I finally hung it up. Because it's been in a box, but I really like it. It's kind of like it's got that material, like it's rough. It's like a rough from a real ticket, basically I'm a big Beatles fan. I love the Beatles, so
I support you in your fandom of the Beatles.
Yeah, so I've got a few of those. That's one of those groups that has the magic.
Right.
Yeah,
they do.
It all came together for those guys, and it had the magic. I don't know if they had the same magic when they split up, but they were still pretty talented, even as individuals.
I accept they're split up. Life is change, right?
Life is
change, and
yeah, and they all did really well. George Harrison too found his way. You know, he's an incredible musician.
Incredible.
And
Yeah.
yeah, they had a great career. I would hope that you know that I would have a fraction of their goodwill, shall we say?
Right.
You know.
Yeah. No, they truly what they achieved. I mean, they also in music industry started out in life signing a super bad deal that
That's
gave
true.
them almost nothing and nothing on merchandising at all. Like to this day, and for up to a certain point,
And they had a lot of merchandising.
Yeah.
At the time too.
Yeah, a lot, and no global residual payments and so on. So there were things that, you know, as much as they were a huge success, they were literally robbed of their own earnings just because of the wording of their deal that they signed. And they were just young and eager to move on to working and succeeding, and they signed it. That's it.
Yeah. Tom Petty. Have you ever seen? There's a documentary on Tom Petty, and it's terrific because he knew how to handle his business and stuff, and very clever fellow. And there was one point where a friend of his was doing that he knew was recording something, and he comes in to visit him, and the manager is there, or the guy from the record company is trying to get him to sing this song that he had points on. And Tom Petty's going, where'd the song from? You should be giving him better material than this. Are you getting points on this material? Like, he really laid it on this guy.
Right.
And you're like, yeah, way to go, man. Because he kind of walked away and said, listen, I either get the rights to all my music or I will never produce anything again.
Right.
And you can't, you know, so they were like, so he ended up winning and getting the rights to his music back, right?
Amazing.
Because they all want to do that, take the rights to your music away.
Oh yeah, I know of musicians, and I know of a songwriter who, you know, she was in the office with the entertainment lawyer, and he was putting together this deal and said that it goes no further unless he gets a piece of her song. That's it. That was it.
I know. They want points.
Yeah.
They want points on the song.
Yeah.
Right.
It's too bad. It's too bad. Just take over this thing, will you, Bruce? Take over that thing.
Oh, you want them to be a bit more. And the other thing is, you know, like for example, in Tom Petty's case,
right.
Yeah, I mean, you want to do business with me? Let's make a better deal. I will give you my albums for you to distribute, but I got to be happy with the deal. I'm not going to just do it because, like they would say to people, oh, you want to be a star, right? Like they say that to actors all the time. Well, this is a great opportunity for you. That, you know, I didn't do all the stuff that I've done for you to give me an opportunity, right? Yeah. Pay me the money that I charge, you know, pay me what I'm worth. I'm not, oh, you're going to be a star from this. I don't want to be a star. I just want to get paid for this.
But you know, but
right.
say that to the 19-year-old, the 21-year-old, the 24-year-old, with no one else in the room backing them, or with their complete lack of experience with what is actually about to go down in the deals that they're presenting. And, you know, it's hard. It's human nature. Somebody who is on the periphery of entertainment, and, you know, in the periphery and the core of it, you know, like that entertainment lawyer, like, you know, the manager, who they see a lot of money floating by and they're not satisfied to say, I'm just going to get my fee. It's a nice big fat fee. You're a lawyer, entertainment lawyer. But no, they want to be making money off that song in perpetuity.
Yeah.
Forever and ever, because they're going to just, you know, break that person's spirit a little bit and say, let me in on this, otherwise you leave this office now with no deal. Right.
I mean, I don't mind making a deal with somebody if they're going to be taking care of my best interest. I don't mind giving somebody a percentage as long as they're making sure that I'm getting paid. You know, I don't mind giving somebody what, you know, what they're worth if they're going to make sure that my best interests are taken care of.
No, but
I
they
don't
want
want to
more.
be watching to make sure that, you know, that I'm getting paid. I want someone that's going to be taking care of that job and they get paid for that. I mean, that's in the acting world, that's the union. That's ACTRA. That's
Kind of. I mean,
SAG.
any contract, whether for music or performing as an actor, can have that little checkbox, and you check it and initial it, and then you realize, oh, what? That said global, worldwide, forever percentage of, you know, and
And
like,
for other planets now.
yes, yeah.
They're talking about the universe. They're not just talking about Earth or, you know, part of, you know, North American sales. They're talking about all of the planets.
When they're getting ready
know?
for, you know, when people are bringing their whatever instrument will be playing our entertainment and our music on when we go to Mars. And,
Yeah,
it
you're going
seems
to be listening to Faith Hill or something on a jet that's going out into space, and
Yep.
she's not getting any money for that. You know,
depending on the deal.
depending on the deal, exactly. Yeah.
So tell me, Bruce, what is next for you?
Well, I'm working on a bunch of different projects. Illustrated Men, we're working on a show called Fart, which is the Fairview. It's called Fart, Fairview Artist Retirement Terrace, and it's about a bunch of performers and artists and writers and musicians that live in a retirement home, and their place is being bought out or transferred from their home into this corporate entity, and they're all fighting it off. But they're all old musicians and comedians and stuff like that. So that's one of the projects we're working on.
Yeah.
It's sort of like the place PAL. I don't know, it's the Performing Arts Lodge that's in Toronto. So it's kind of loosely based on that. Tony Rosado, who is a famous actor and an SCTV performer in Second City, he could have inspired us a little bit. He's not around anymore, but we have a character that we wrote that he appears in it as a shout out to him. He's kind of a ghost-like character.
Okay.
So there's that, and I'm writing a bunch of different plays. One I want to do is that takes place outside, so we can do it in different places, and it's called it's about a wedding photographer. So I'm thinking it might be Wedding Capture or something like that is the title of it. But it's all about the wedding photos that are being taken halfway through the wedding, you know, when they go off with the bride and groom and they take pictures of them.
Right.
And the audience would be there witnessing that, either by a gazebo or something. And you see these four characters that are involved in this, the groom and the bride, and then the wedding photographer and his assistant, you know. So there's this relationship with these four characters, and the audience is part of it, a part of the show too.
Right. Oh,
so there's that. I'm writing, and yeah, just those kind of shows.
It's amazing. I think it's wonderful, especially when you're generating new, unique, interesting material just right out of your own thought process and creative process. It's exciting. And
well, I mean, in that particular case, I kind of know, like, things will come up and I'll go, oh, that would be cool. And so they're all like these lights that all basically come together, you know, like, oh, here's an interesting thing, and here's that thing I saw, which would be great if I included it in or I get an idea for a play based on this thing that I see. And so I like seeing those things turn into something. You know, when I grab it and then put it on paper, it comes alive, you know.
Of course.
I love that stuff. I love that.
I think it's so amazing that you're doing this and that we're looking forward to more and more from you. And I want to thank you for your time and your energy, sharing
thank
this.
you.
Oh, it's been wonderful. So my heartfelt gratitude and applause to you, Mr. Bruce Hunter, joining us here at Cool Life Podcast.
All
Now,
right.
I also want to say, for all of your career and everything you've done and inspired me personally, you've given me a lot to want to live up to. And I want to thank you for that on a personal level. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Bruce.
And it's been nice knowing you.
It's been nice knowing you. And I hope to continue to know you. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Eva.
Thank you. And thank you from everyone at Cool Life.
Thanks for having me.
And that was our show. Thank you for listening to the very end. Please remember to subscribe through your streaming service to get more access to our guest interviews. Also, please subscribe on YouTube to help support our podcast. Until next time, I'm Eva John for Cool Life Podcast. Thank you for turning me on.